Have you ever wondered what happens when a ship bigger than a skyscraper makes a tiny mistake? Well, today we're going to find out. I challenged my team to find the most insane, unbelievable, and shocking ship disasters ever caught on camera, and what they found is absolutely mind-blowing. Colossal cruise ships tipping over like toys. Massive cargo vessels getting stuck and literally stopping the entire world's economy. Naval destroyers worth hundreds of millions crashing in the middle of the night. These aren't just accidents, epic failures with catastrophic consequences, and every single second was filmed. We spent thousands acquiring this footage. We're going to break down what went wrong in 10 of the most dramatic maritime disasters in history. So, buckle up, you won't want to miss a single second. Alright, kicking off our list at number 10 is the Costa Concordia. Picture this. You're on a luxury Italian cruise ship. It's basically a floating city, with thousands of people, swimming pools, theaters, everything. You're having the time of your life. But then, the captain decides to do something incredibly reckless. He steered this massive 114,000-ton vessel dangerously close to the shore of an Italian island, just to show off to a friend on the island. This wasn't a small mistake. This was a billion-dollar flex that went horribly, horribly wrong. The ship, which is longer than 3 football fields, struck an underwater rock that tore a massive 160-foot gash in its side. Water began pouring in immediately, flooding the engine rooms and cutting off all power. The giant floating resort suddenly went dark and silent, except for rushing water and confusion. The ship started to list, tilting more and more as compartments filled. We have footage from inside as it's tipping over, plates and glasses sliding off tables, furniture crashing across rooms, panicked passengers. The crew initially said it was just an electrical problem, but as the list grew impossible, it was clearly a catastrophe. People were scrambling for lifeboats in the dark, navigating hallways that had become steep, slippery slopes. Because the ship was listing so severely, half of the lifeboats were completely unusable. You can see people literally climbing down the side of the ship using ropes, while rescue helicopters circled overhead. The captain, Francesco Schettino, abandoned ship while hundreds were still trapped, later ordered by the Coast Guard to get back on board. An absolute failure of leadership at the worst moment. The aftermath was just as dramatic. The Costa Concordia lay on its side for over 2 years. The largest, most expensive salvage in history. Nearly $2 billion. Engineers built an underwater platform and used giant cables to pull the ship upright before towing it away. All because of a risky salute. A brutal lesson in how ego can trigger unimaginable disaster. Next up, at number 9, is a ship that didn't sink and didn't crash into another vessel, but still caused one of the biggest traffic jams in history and cost the global economy billions. I'm talking about the Ever Given, one of the largest in the world, 400 meters long, longer than the Empire State Building is tall, carrying 20,000 containers. In March 2021, this one ship brought world trade to a halt in the Suez Canal, where about 12% of global trade passes. A massive sandstorm kicked up, gusts to 46 miles per hour, acting on those stacked containers like a giant sail. Control was lost. The ship veered off course and wedged diagonally across the canal. Bow and stern stuck fast. The result was a perfect blockage. Nothing could get through. A parking lot of hundreds of ships formed on both ends, tankers, container ships, everything, just waiting, like a single car blocking every lane of a 12-lane highway on a global scale. Nearly $10 billion worth of trade held up every single day. The rescue began, almost comically, featuring that now famous tiny excavator digging beside the colossal bow. For 6 days, teams pushed, pulled, and dredged, over 30,000 cubic meters of sand removed. With help from a high tide, they did it. Tugboat horns blared as the giant ship finally moved. The 400-plus ship jam cleared, but the ripple effects caused months of delays worldwide. A stark reminder, our modern economy depends on giants threading tiny choke points, and one gust can throw the system into chaos. The Ever Given turned a narrow waterway into the world's most expensive parking spot. Coming in at number 8, a disaster proving even advanced warships are vulnerable to simple human error. USS Fitzgerald, sleek sensors, built to defeat missiles, yet on a busy night off Japan, the basics failed. Lookouts and radar discipline broke down, communication faltered. They were effectively sailing blind. The ACX Crystal, nearly 3 times the size, closed fast. Lights flashed. No response from Fitzgerald. The Crystal's bulbous bow punched a 13 by 17-foot hole below the waterline. Devastating. A berthing with 35 sailors flooded in under 90 seconds. 7 sailors drowned. The gaping wound is shocking. Only heroic damage control kept Fitzgerald afloat. 2 months later, number 7, the USS John S. McCain collided in the ultra-busy Singapore Strait. A simple handoff split controls. Helm inputs no longer moved the rudders. The bridge team was confused and lost control. The ship veered into the path of the 30,000-ton Alnic MC. The tanker's bow sliced into McCain, flooding multiple spaces, including sleeping quarters. 10 sailors were killed. Images of McCain under escort with a massive hole became a grim sequel to Fitzgerald. The investigation found poor training and misunderstanding of steering control systems. Proof technology is useless without competent crews. 2 destroyers, 17 dead sailors, over $1 billion in damage in just 2 months. A brutal warning. Fundamentals save ships, neglect sinks them. At number 6, New Zealand's worst maritime environmental crisis, the MV Rena. To save time and fuel, the captain took a shortcut, straight toward the charted Astrolabe Reef. At 17 knots, the ship slammed onto the reef. The 47,000-ton vessel stopped dead. Hull torn like a can opener. Over 1,700 tons of heavy fuel oil began leaking, thick black slicks spreading toward pristine beaches. Thousands of seabirds died, heartbreaking scenes along the Bay of Plenty. Storms overwhelmed the hull. A massive crack appeared. The ship began to break in half. The stern separated and sank. Containers spilled, including milk powder and hazardous materials. A massive, dangerous salvage. Helicopters airlifting crews and containers. Teams pumping off remaining oil. Cleanup and recovery took years and cost hundreds of millions, all because of an unauthorized shortcut to save a few hours. A devastating example of how negligence can scar a natural paradise for years. For number 5, the sinking of the Sewol ferry in South Korea. 476 aboard, 325 students. A fun trip, on a disaster waiting to happen. The ferry was dangerously overloaded, cargo unsecured, and modifications made it top-heavy. Profit over safety. A sharp turn caused cargo to shift at once. The ship listed suddenly and sharply, a point of no return. The infamous instruction over the intercom, "Stay in your rooms and do not move." Students, at first joking, grew terrified as tilt worsened and water crept into corridors, waiting for help that never came. While passengers waited, the captain and many crew were among the first to abandon ship. Final images show Sewol overturned, keel exposed, before it sank entirely. Only 172 people were saved. Over 300 died. 250 were students who had been told to stay put. A national outpouring of grief and anger followed. The Prime Minister resigned. The captain and crew were arrested. A gut-wrenching lesson in corporate greed, regulatory failure, and failed leadership. From tiny mistakes to catastrophic outcomes, the human element remains the most critical and fragile link in maritime safety.